Reading through the Bible in a year, August 13th, 1 Samuel chapter 3, Romans chapter 3, Jeremiah 41, and Psalm 17. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again the Lord called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time. Samuel got up, went to Eli, and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down. If he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears of it tingle. At that time I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family from beginning to end. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons made themselves contemptible, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore, I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering." Then Samuel lay down until morning and opened the doors of the Lord. He was afraid, opened the doors to the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision. But Eli called him and said to him, "Samuel, my son." Samuel answered, "Here I am." "What is it that he said to you?" Eli asked. "Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you." So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, "He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes." The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up. He let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. Moving on now to Romans chapter 3. Once again, questions, concerns, there's tons of notes here. All right. So, we're going to go over a bit of background real quick. So, remember in chapter 1, we went over and discussed the fact that everyone everywhere, the whole planet, even people who live off in Boingo Boingo, who have never seen a Bible or heard anybody talk to them about the Jesus, they all know instinctively the laws of God. These have been made clear to them. It's been revealed to them through their conscience that God has given them. They know right from wrong. This is something you don't necessarily have to teach people. However, as anybody who's ever dealt with a toddler, which my grandson now is, toddlers, while they know right from wrong, they will still fight against you. And they will still choose to do that they know is wrong. They're testing these boundaries. And as we've spoken before, the rest of creation doesn't do this. You don't have a tree that grows up and it says, "You know what? Screw this. I'm going to be a rock for a day." Or, "You know what? No, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to walk over there because that's a better place for me. God chose wrong for my location." Or maybe it's like, "You know what? I'm going to be a bird. I've always felt in myself that I'm a bird. I have this beautiful plumage already. Let me be a bird instead. And it throws itself off of a cliff. It doesn't do that. Why? Because nature follows the laws of God. Animals follow the law of God. As one of my favorite quotes, there are no errant molecules throughout the entire universe. Nothing happens outside of God's knowledge or control, which even means, yes, sometimes bad things happen to us from worldly perspectives and even maybe moral, personal ones. But all of these things that occur happen under the guidance of God. Sometimes God is orchestrating it behind the scenes. Sometimes God's just allowing something to take place so that he can either shape your personal theology and lead you down one path or another. He's doing that. Be glad, because that means you're of the elect. Continuing on. So we read about how everyone knows the law of God. Yet, for those who aren't, for those who are non-converted, they will continually only seek to do that which pleases themselves, and they will continue to push this as far and as hard and as fast as they can until they fall under, until they run into the wall of where God is stopping them. And they'll clamor and blame God and attack him until they get to do whatever the next thing is, and the next thing, and the next thing. We saw that play out in chapter 1. In chapter 2, he starts laying out, well, okay, so that's for the people who don't know the law. What about those who know the law? And he's realizing he's writing to both Jews and Gentiles. So in chapter 2, he starts talking about how the law is given, which he expands on here, and we'll go into more, God willing, tomorrow. But the law is given so that we can understand God's direct, just decrees, who know the law themselves. And he expands into that, and he says, he's trying to kind of talk about these hyperbolic statements. He does this pretty often. He also does it in 1 Corinthians 13. We'll get to that later. Where he's balancing out here the two different extremes. The first extreme that he expounds on in yesterday's reading, chapter 2, is what if there's a Gentile who wasn't raised on the law, who knew nothing of the law, right? He wasn't given these oracles of God. He doesn't know the history. He wasn't raised up in the synagogue. What happens if that guy follows his conscience perfectly? From the moment he's conceived all the way through to his death, he follows that conscience that God has given him perfectly to the letter. And at the end of the last chapter, he concludes, if that's the case, then he's more righteous and justified than you are. He will be the one in the heavenly realms. He is the one to whom about whom the psalmist speaks when he says, who will ascend into your temple? Who will climb your hill, the holy hill? He who is blameless in his walk. Right? He who never violates the stranger. He who his thoughts are only on you continually. He who only lives a pure life. He is the one who can ascend your holy hill and enter into your heaven. That's this Gentile. Again, for a Jew reading this, that's anathema. That's the worst possible thing you could hear, is that your God would even care about Gentiles. It was a horrific thing to them. In fact, through most of Paul's reading, there's this mystery that he's talking about. He refers to it quite a bit. Well, what is that mystery? The mystery is that, remember, Paul himself was formerly Saul. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He's the Jew of the Jews. He was the one who put all of his care and effort and everything that he was into his identity as a Jewish person, born from the line of Benjamin, right? Raised up in the church, trained at the feet of Gamaliel in Jerusalem. He's certainly born of Tarsus, right? But even being born of Tarsus, he is still this excellent Jew first Jew. He was a zealot for that, to the point that when Christians started talking about there's not another, but the completion of the Jewish story is found in Christ Jesus, he was so offended and angry at that he persecuted Christians to death wherever he found them. This is how zealous he was for this. And yet God used him as the apostle to the Gentiles. The very thing he would have hated the most to do in his former way of life, now he embraces and he loves to do it. And that's what this letter is partially doing. So that's what the end of chapter 2 goes over. And now we're entering into chapter 3. Well, we were reading about one side of that ditch. This, again, we're talking hyperbolic statements. Right? What is the most things that would anger the Jews but please the Gentiles? This one perfect Jewish person, not Jew, but Gentile person who might exist. This is the one who could go to heaven. Well, what then is for the Jews on the other side of the conversation? That's where we begin here. So what advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Verse 1 begins. Much in every way. First of all, they had been entrusted with the very words of God, referred to in other translations as the oracles of God. Well, what if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. This is Paul speaking now. Certainly not. If that were so, how could God judge the world? Some might argue if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases his glory, then why am I still condemned as a sinner? Why not say, as we are being slanderously reported as saying, as some claim that we say, let us do evil that good may perish. Their condemnation is deserved. So he brings up a couple different points here. The first, basically that as a Jew who grew up in the Jewish system, right, you're circumcised on the 8th day, you're raised up in the fear and admonition of the Lord, you're taught from the law, which is what they refer to as all of their scriptures that they had available to them at that time. They were taught from that every Sabbath day in temple, right? They went to all of the places where all of these wonderful things had happened. They have the actual real temple there before them, where the Shekinah glory of God rests above that the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant that is in that room directly in front of them. And they know this. They know their own history. They know that God is the one, Yahweh is the one who plucked up Abraham and said, I'm going to set you apart for purpose, that I'm going to be your God and your people will be my people. And he picked him up and he placed him in a land in Canaan that he'd never owned anything in except for a burial place for him and his family. And his descendants later went into Egypt, and then he sent Moses, again a man whom he had chosen, to go and redeem his people out of that land, pull them out, and then lead them through the wilderness, and eventually deliver them into the promised land. And that same God took care of all of their people through that wilderness time. Their clothes never rotted, their shoes never wore out. They always had food and water. God was taking care of all of their physical needs. And he was developing them as a people for himself. Those who entered the promised land followed God's law perfectly. When they failed, bad things happened. So they knew, I have to follow this perfectly. And God delivered to them the lands. They established all of Canaan as the land of Israel. Everybody had their own plot of land, less the Levites, because their inheritance from God was leading the temple and leading the worship of the people. After that's done, the people fell away. As we're reading through in 1 Samuel, God regathers the people to himself. Then we have the story of First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, which talk about the kings and how that plays out. We're also reading through the prophets. We're going to read through in Jeremiah here shortly. All of the people were being developed as a people for serving God, but they continually fell away, such that Israel had completely been taken away about 100 years or so before Judah finally fell. And then there was nothing. For 400 years, they had silence after they were finally returned back to their land. And after they were returned back to their land, then what happened? They were no longer allowed to be kings in their own land over themselves. They always had someone to rule over them. Right? This is what we see building up here. And these are the people of Israel at this time. They were in expectation that when the Messiah was going to come, he was going to set up a new kingdom for Israel to reign forever. That's what they expected to have happen. And this Jesus, well, he died, according to the Jews. He did physically die. But they're like, yeah, and then those Christians say that he's alive, but that won't happen. If that happened, then what he said was true, and we can't believe that, so we're just going to choose to ignore that. That's the Jews that they have at this time. So when we read through this, we have to understand this is the history of what the people are understanding at this point. They have all of this kind of built-in knowledge about who God is and what that looks like for them. Excuse me. So they have all of this truth about who God is that the Gentile wouldn't have. How would you not call that an advantage, right? And that's exactly his point. But now he goes into the next point, which is, but what happens for those who are unfaithful? In the Old Testament, God abandoned those people. He knew those who were his. This is how we differentiate between the elect and the non-elect in Old Testament time. So the next line that comes up, 5-8 here, he makes it pretty simple. He's saying, but if our unrighteousness, if our inability to keep God's law brings out the righteousness, the ability to keep that law more clearly, like how a black velvet background is used when jewelers take out a gemstone and they set it on there. Why? Because it blacks everything out around it so that the light can be captured only by only by that gemstone, and it shines more brightly because of the darkness surrounding it. Therefore, if we violate God's law so that God's law is more pronounced, and if God gets the glory for redeeming people out of sinfulness, why don't I become more sinful so that when God extracts me out of that, it's a bigger, better story for someone else? See? He says, absolutely not. Now down to verse 9. What shall we conclude then? Are we, he's using the term we to speak of himself. He's acknowledging he is a Jew. He's a Jewish person. So are we any better? Not at all. We have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles are alike. Starting over. We have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles alike are all under sin. Chapter 1. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood, and ruin and misery mark their ways. In the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Briefly stop here for a moment to mention that there's an article in the middle here from R.C. Sproul on the atonement. Strongly recommend you pause and read. Continuing on. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be declared righteous in his sight, in God's sight, by observing the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of sin. But now, a righteousness from God, apart from the law, has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. This righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no difference. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood. He did this to demonstrate his justice, because in his forbearance he had left the sins committed beforehand unpunished. He did it to demonstrate his justice at the present time, so as to be just and the one who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. There's just so many notes on this section. I strongly recommend that you just pause and read through them all. This is my second time reading through this. The audio got all messed up. At the very beginning, I didn't even notice it. And by the time I finished my reading yesterday, my throat was just done, so I'm redoing this first thing in the morning. Anyway, all that said, I would recommend reading through the notes on this. They're fantastic, and that's why they're here. Verse 27. Well, where then is boasting? What does he talk about boasting? Because people would, and we even see it today. We see it in songs like, "Today I have chosen to follow Jesus," right? As if you're the one who gets the glory for choosing to grab that, golden ring of salvation. I have chosen today. I today am a Christian person. Yay for me. Not about you. It was never about you. Jesus absolutely went to the cross and died for your sins. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong, but it's not so that God would be up in heaven going, "Oh, good. Jim Franklin from, Boston, Massachusetts. Yay. I finally have him. Ooh, open heaven. Everybody's so happy that now we have this guy. We needed this guy. He's going to be a great warrior for us." No, it's only ever for God and for his glory. God, when he uses us, it's not because you're a good person. It's not because you deserve it. Not that you've earned it. Not that you're the one who did all the hard work to obtain your salvation, much less maintain it. It's the God who chose you, who changed you, who redeemed you, and who is glorifying you. Because in the heavenly realms, you are already justified in his sight. And when God uses you, all you got to do is just be faithful. You don't have to be perfect in your theology, certainly not to begin with. You don't have to be perfect in your in your speech. It might seem like I'm really good at doing this. I'm not. I'm terrible. It's just something that God does in me. If I talk about anything else, it's funny because this is one of the harder things for me to talk about generally. But when I do start talking to somebody about Jesus, it just pours out like water, naturally. When I got to talk about anything else, it freaks me out sometimes. That said, see, I get off topic. It's never been about you. It's only been about him. And it's only ever been about him to his glory. So, where then is the boasting? It's excluded. On what principle? On that of observing the law? Did I earn this myself by keeping that law? Did I do the law perfectly when I get to heaven? Is God going to open up, are the angels going to open up the books and they're going to go, "Oh, he met every one of these things that were required. let's just ignore his sins that he's committed and throw those away because he kept the Sabbath day perfectly. No. It's only been about Jesus. Only been about keeping, not keeping, but fulfilling God's wrath against you and his justice that must be carried out on you for your sins that you've committed. All of these are completed through Jesus Christ on your behalf. That's the only reason why we're able to walk free. That's the only reason why we're even allowed entrance into the heavenly realms. Not because we're good people, but because Jesus was good on our behalf. He is our penal substitutionary atonement. So where then is boasting? It's excluded. On what principle? On that of observing the law? No, but on that of faith. For we maintain that man is justified by faith apart from observing the law. Not a part of observing the law. No, it's separated. Whereas the east is from the west. A man is justified by faith. Observing the law, tossed out entirely. Why? Because you can't do it. As we read through Acts, when the question of, what should a Gentile do as they become a Christian? What are the things that they should maintain? And they were the Jews, the Jew first Christians were saying, well, they must become Jews first. They must abstain from all of these foods. They must be circumcised. They must do all of our feasts and everything else that we do here at the Jewish temple. They were adding Jesus as an add-on package, as DLC to their Jewish identity. But it's not DLC. It's a brand new, entirely separate patch. You have to uninstall the old to put in the new. So what happens here is we have these, my brain is just running with this whole software thing. Uninstalling one, putting another. Yeah. That's a fun one. I should develop that later. But we'll do that later on. What's happening is when they're discussing this, what is it that Peter says? He said, no, we're not going to put that law on them that neither us nor our fathers could keep. Observing the law, keeping it perfectly, that was done by Jesus on your behalf. Now we follow the law of Christ. That's the difference we see here. Verse 29, is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too. Since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised. Now, circumcised is Paul's favorite term, referring to those who are Jewish people, right? So who will justify the circumcised by faith, not by keeping the law, but by faith, and the uncircumcised through that same faith. This is how we're justified before God, is by faith alone. Do we then nullify the law by this faith? Not at all. Rather, we uphold the law. So what does he mean by upholding the law? God willing, we're going to go over more of that tomorrow. But remember that the law exists as a signpost to say, this is exactly how holy you must be to step into my temple, to be within my realm, for me to accept you at my own terms, says God, because he's the one who created us. He's the one who gave us our purpose. He's the one who has, so directed our lives on this planet, and yet we've used all of that time to rebel against him. It is the law reveals to us our sinfulness, reveals to us the standard of God and how far we fall short of that. We'll go into more of that, God willing, tomorrow. Let's go ahead and move on now to Jeremiah 41. In the 7th month, Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah. Now, a bit of background here. Remember, Jerusalem was just destroyed. It was conquered. The walls were broken down. The city was burned. The temple was sacked. Um, everything has been destroyed in all of Jerusalem. So, Babylonians, and this was done largely to, well, it was entirely by God. He was the one who was directing Nebuchadnezzar to do this. But it was also done to remove Jerusalem as the seat of power for Judah. So all that's left is this other little town called Mizpah. And he sets up a governor to rule over the land. I mean, when you conquer an area, you don't want to just leave it fallow, right? You want people to continue to take care of the fields. If you have a field just like fallow, it'd be full of weeds and rocks and so forth. It'd be impossible to continue to grow in. So you have people who continue to take care of that land, and you have a governor there who's going to manage what's happening. And you put in a group of soldiers also to help operate as local police to help take care of things, right? That's what happens. Now, this guy who was put in position of power as the governor of the land, Gedaliah, he's a trusting guy, but really he shouldn't be. He's already been told that people have come to kill you. Like, no, why would you say that? No. You be nice to them. This is a new land. It's a new place. We're all going to get together now. Because he understands that he is standing in the place of Nebuchadnezzar. He is a representative of Babylon, the Chaldeans here in this town, right? So, verse 1, in the 7th month, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, who was of royal blood and had been one of the king's officers, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mizpah. He's the governor of the land. While they were eating together there, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and the 10 men who were with him got up and struck down Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, with the sword, killing the one whom the king of Babylon had appointed as governor over the land. Ishmael also killed all the Jews who were with Gedaliah at Mizpah, as well as the Babylonian soldiers who were there. Day after Gedaliah's assassination, before anyone knew about it, and they didn't have, CNN, they didn't have the internet to share this stuff. 80 men who had shaved off their beards and torn their clothing and cut themselves came from Shechem and Shiloh and Samaria, bringing grain offerings and incense with them to the house of the Lord. Now Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, went out from Mizpah to meet them, weeping as he went. He went to meet them and said, "Come to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam." When they went into the city, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and the men who were with him slaughtered them and threw them into a cistern. But 10 of them said to Ishmael, "Don't kill us. We have wheat, barley, oil, and honey hidden in a field." So he let them alone and did not kill them with the others. Now the cistern, where he threw all their bodies, all the bodies of the men he had killed, along with Gedaliah, was the one King Asa had made as part of his defense against Baasha, king of Israel. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, filled it with the dead. Ishmael made captives of all the rest of the people who were in Mizpah, the king's daughters, along with all the elders who were left there, whom Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, had appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, took them captive and set out to cross over to the Ammonites. When Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the army officers who were with him heard about all the crimes Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had committed, they took all their men and went out to fight Ishmael, son of Nethaniah. They caught up with him near the great pool in Gibeon. When all the people Ishmael had with him saw Johanan, son of Kareah, and the army officers who were with him, they were glad. And all the people Ishmael had taken captive at Mizpah turned and went over to Johanan, son of Kareah. But Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and 8 of his men escaped from Johanan and fled to the Ammonites. Then Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the army officers who were with him led away all the survivors from Mizpah, whom he had recovered from Ishmael, son of Nethaniah. Make sure you don't lose notes. Continuing. He led them away. I lost my spot. I'm going to pick back up at 16. Then Johanan, son of Kareah, and all the army officers who were with him led away all their survivors from Mizpah, whom he had recovered from Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, after he had assassinated Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the soldiers, women, children, and court officials he had brought from Gibeon. And they went on, stopping at Geruchimham, near Bethlehem, on their way to Egypt. Now they're going to Egypt. Why? Because they're afraid, to escape the Babylonians. Why are they trying to escape the Babylonians? Because they assume that once it's reported in Babylon that the person that they had set up as governor is dead, all the officers that they had and all the soldiers that they had to keep the peace there have been killed, and most of the other people have been killed. It's created this giant power vacuum, and they're afraid that what's going to happen is Nebuchadnezzar is going to come back with his army, just wipe everybody out. Right? That's what they're afraid of. This plays out a lot in the next readings to come, or in the next days to come. But so this is why they're now fleeing to Egypt. They were afraid of them because Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had killed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, whom the king had appointed, or the king of Babylon had appointed as governor over the land. This is why they're running from them, right? So what we're going to see tomorrow builds up a lot into that. Concluding today in Psalm 17. Hear, O Lord, my righteous plea. Listen to my cry. Give ear to my prayer. It does not rise from deceitful lips. May my vindication come from you. May your eyes see what is right. Though you probe my heart and examine me at night, though you test me, you will find nothing. I have resolved that my mouth will not sin. As for the deeds of men, by the word of your lips, I have kept myself from the ways of the violent. This is someone who lives in the fear of the Lord. My steps have held to your paths. My feet have not slipped. I call on you, O God, for you will answer me. Give ear to me and hear my prayer. This is someone who has great faith. They trust that God is going to take care of their needs. Show the wonder of your great love, you who save by your right hand, those who take refuge in you from their foes. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. From the wicked who assail me, from my mortal enemies who surround me. They close up their callous hearts, and their mouths speak with arrogance. They have tracked me down. They now surround me, with eyes alert to throw me to the ground. They are like a lion hungry for prey, like a great lion crouching in cover. Rise up, O Lord, confront them, bring them down. Rescue me from the wicked by your sword. O Lord, by your hand, save me from such men, from men of this world whose reward is in this life. You still the hunger of those you cherish. Their sons have plenty, and they store up wealth for their children. And I, in righteousness, will see your face. When I awake, I will be satisfied with seeing your likeness. That's it. That is all the reading and all of the notes for today. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the Lord.